Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to Access Channel Comics. I'm your host, The Banks, Corey Banks, coming at you with episode number 10, reaching a milestone, 10 episodes. I greatly appreciate that. And I wanted to come at you today and talk to you about a lot of stuff that's going on in the entertainment business this week. We saw some season finales coming up, wrapping up this week, mainly for some DC Comics television shows such as The Flash, amazing episode. If you haven't seen that, make sure you catch up on that. You can catch up on it on a lot of the DC shows streaming on Hulu Plus, also on CWTV.com. You can catch them on that. Arrow also had a season finale this week, and last week was DC's Legends of Tomorrow. Gotham has had a season finale also as well. So catch up on the shows. But today episode actually is not about those. It's actually about X-Men Apocalypse. That's also something that happened this week. Also, X-Men Apocalypse happened this week, and it was released worldwide yesterday. I actually saw the movie yesterday. Today is going to be a review of that movie. It is a spoiler review. So if you have not seen the movie, you may not want to watch this video. You can come back and watch it later after you've seen the movie, or if you don't mind being spoiled, then hey, more power to you. You can watch the video then. But again, this is a spoiler review. Went to the AMC theater yesterday, got there early, did a little shopping, decided to buy some X-Men movies from the past. I had X-Men movies in my past in the collection, so I decided to do some rebooting. I went and caught X-Men First Class on sale. They had a deal, FYE, buy one movie, used, get another one for $1. So I bought X-Men First Class and the first ever X-Men movie called X-Men 1.5. Got that on DVD, got a little throwback for $1. But X-Men First Class got on Blu-ray. Got me a little bit even more hyped up about the movie. I am a huge X-Men fan. Definitely love the comics, love the animated series, especially the 90s series and other variations. And I like the movie versions of X-Men. I don't think it gets as much recognition as it should. And the reason why I say this is this before I get into spoiler review. I don't want anyone to take what I'm going to say out of content. I love Marvel Studios movies. I really do. I think what they have done is fascinating. They've now made over, 10 billion, altogether. More than just pretty much about anyone. Beautifully well done movies. They're not perfect, but they're well done movies. But it's kind of like basketball. Certain players come along, transcend the game, and it's not their fault. That's great. Like Steph Curry right now is doing his thing. It's his time. But what happens is sometimes they kind of get blamed, or certain things do kind of maneuver their way. Every kid think they have to play exactly like Steph Curry. I think Steph Curry will tell you this. There's nothing wrong with kind of mimicking my style, but be you. And understand the game, the basics of the game comes before my style of the game. And I feel that way with Marvel Studios. A lot of superhero movies now are getting looked at like it has to be the way Marvel Studios does it. I feel like in a way, a couple of years ago, it got to the point with Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight trilogy. Every movie sort of looked like it's got to be dark like the Dark Knight trilogy. And that's not Chris Nolan's fault. It's not Marvel Studios' fault. Sometimes the way people interpret things. And the reason I'm bringing that up is this. We got to remember Fox Marvel movie, The X-Men, was out before Marvel Studios. As a matter of fact, predated it 8 years before the first Marvel Studios movie came out. Now, Kevin Feige used to work over there with those guys. And I can understand people thinking certain things because Marvel has perfected it. It's not that they were the first one to do a shared universe. They just has done it just as great as anyone. They weren't the first one to do end credit scenes. They just do it just as great as anyone. Constantine, Vertigo DC Comics had an end credit scene years ago. Shia LaBeouf's character came back as the Angel. Daredevil had mid-credit, end credit scenes. The X-Men movies did also. So the reason why I'm bringing all this up is not a bashing on Marvel Studios. I love Marvel Studios. It's just a point I want people to understand. It's nothing wrong with, wow, Marvel Studios would have done this, but keep in mind, other studios got their own way of doing things. And that's what brings me to Fox with Marvel. Whether you like the X-Men movies, whether you don't like the X-Men movies, this is a bankable franchise that's made over, altogether, I think it was recorded over $3 billion altogether. They've had success. They are next to line after Batman as being on the big screen more than any franchise as far as the superhero genre. Batman will be making his 10th appearance in Suicide Squad. in live action coming up in August. Even if it's a small role, it's his 10th appearance. X-Men now has a culmination of dating back to 2000 as far as their live action movies. Now, I'm not going to get on to ranking the movies. Me, myself, always battling. My number one is X2, X-Men United, and X-Men Days of Future Past. And I love what they did with First Class in the first X-Men movie. I'm not going to get too much all in detail, but now let's talk about X-Men Apocalypse. Where I'm going to start from what I'm going to say about this movie, I really like this movie. I've been hearing what people had said about it, the jokes made about it. I said, this is kind of getting a little too much. What I do, we're living in a world today where back in the day, if a movie, let's just say Batman from 1989 came out, we didn't have YouTube, we didn't have the internet and all this other stuff, streaming media, and that's not a bad thing, you know. But it would have been cool if we'd had it back then. But the thing about now, everyone can voice opinion, and I feel like it's a trend that goes along. If somebody's joking about this movie and clowning it, so the other people gonna start doing it. Now, don't get me wrong. If it deserved to be clowned, I guess it deserved to be clowned. But I don't think no one's work deserved to be humiliated. So, but the reason I'm saying this is everybody has an opinion. People got a right to an opinion, but everybody's voicing it now. So I try to stay away from the reviews of X-Men Apocalypse. I did see sometime when I would pull up YouTube, automatically X-Men Apocalypse not good, the question mark and all that stuff. I said, I guess it's something every movie good franchise go through these days. You know, even believe it or not, Captain America Civil War, after Batman v Superman, had some pressure on it, you know. And so, but X-Men Apocalypse is one of those things where I say, you know, I'm going to go with an open mind. I went in there, and from the opener of the movie and everything, I really like what I saw so far. I felt that X-Men wholesome feeling come over me. One thing about the X-Men movies I've always enjoyed is the fact of it's really good storytelling. Bryan Singer has not made a bad X-Men movie yet, and I hope he never does. I feel like, before I go getting deep into it, I don't think this was as great as X-Men Days of Future Past, but it's not like it's 100 times behind it either. I think on some levels, a third movie is always kind of tough to do, and when you see this movie, you're going to see certain head nods go towards that. But we must remember, this is a part of the current trilogy of X-Men First Class, X-Men Days of Future Past, and now X-Men Apocalypse. And let me tell you something. This, you will not be disappointed like you was with the first trilogy when it came to X-Men The Last Stand. You know, X-Men was very good. X2, X-Men United was great. X-Men Last Stand was just not on that level. Even though financially successfully did bank, but not on a level. But anyway, talking about X-Men Apocalypse, I really enjoyed this movie. First, starting off, I enjoyed the build up, the character development with Apocalypse. Apocalypse was a very believable villain in this. He probably, since Ajax in Deadpool, was one of the best villains. And that's not to take away from Lex Luthor and Batman v Superman, even though that was done a different way. That's not to take away from Nemo in Captain America Civil War. But Apocalypse was one of those ones imposing. If you see this guy walking, two things you're going to think. Sort of what they did in the movie. He was draped in the hood. He kind of did look clownish. You're like, who is this guy? He's serious? But when you look into his eyes and his face, you're going to be like, whoa, who is this guy? He looks very intimidating. And when the eyes flare up, that's all she wrote. He was basically scouting. He noticed Storm, you know, what she was up to, and when she did her works, distracted everyone, she stole something. Keep in mind, Yurga Monroe, Storm, aka Storm, she started out as that thief. They kind of changed some of the story, because you remember the Shadow Thief had her doing the stealing in the mythology, but Apocalypse noticed her. So, you know, he followed her. The guy had got her in the street. So Apocalypse came and said enough. You know, and Apocalypse, you know, he was like, the guy pulled the knife out and the other guys came running. It was like, I thought maybe the guy would have been spared, maybe. But then next thing you know, Apocalypse with sand. Keep in mind, Apocalypse, for many who you don't know, is considered the first mutant on the earth ever. Now, there has been some variations in the canon now that's questioned. But he's always been the first mutant I know of as far as in the mythology of the X-Men. Very powerful. He could do things with the mind, raising the hand, kind of like no other, as far as in the mythology. So with sand, he decapitates these guys' heads. just takes them all. 3 of these guys. I mean, like in a row. If you kind of like in the scene with Deadpool in the movie, 3 guys in a row got shot in the head, it decapitates them. The next thing you know, the other guy, he's freaking out. The guy starts apologizing, but too late. He puts this guy in a wall, and all oxygen cut off. So, he comes with Storm to her home and everything. He is just like, when you see this character, I was already hooked to Apocalypse because I love the way, for many of you may not know, Oscar Isaacs, who stars in Star Wars, Force Awakens, who played the pilot. Now, don't get me wrong, don't jump on me. I'm a Star Wars fan, but I'm not totally in Star Wars like I am some other franchise. But he played the pilot, and but he plays Apocalypse, great actor. And the way he was just looking around the place, he was doing it very believable. This is a guy who's been on this earth for thousands of years, but he's been asleep in hibernation for a long time. So keep in mind, like Captain America, he's coming out, he's looking at this world today, like, wow, what is all of this? So he saw the television, and he touched it and everything. Storm like, what are you doing and stuff like that, And he said, learning. He was learning about our technology today, not only about technology, our customs, languages, and everything, how we interact with one another. He touched Storm's face. She was like, what are you doing? Because like at that point, she probably think like, is this guy coming on to me? But he said, I have a gift for you, giving her, say, you use your powers, and her hands start turning frost. The actress who played Storm did a very good job, I think. I do not think she was wasted. This was a younger version of Storm. The punk rock Storm with the mohawk from the 80s. X-Men Apocalypse is based in the 80s. She had the accent the whole movie. I actually think, dare I say, she did a better job than Halle Berry did. I like Halle Berry's performances as a Storm, but let's date back just to take a breather from Apocalypse right quick. Halle Berry became Storm, while Halle Berry was probably the hottest female actress on the planet at that time. She was going to the point where she was getting real hot in the movies. Halle Berry was becoming mainstream in the movies. She'd been in the movies for a while. Keep in mind, was that same year, the next year, she won Best Actress, Best Lead Actress. The same night Denzel won Best Lead Actor for Training Day. She won it for Monster Ball. A lot of people back then was like, man, Angela Bassett should be Storm. I've always wanted Angela Bassett to play Storm. If they ever do a point where Storm is older and Angela Bassett still looks fantastic, she does, I think she should be considered Storm. But at the time, you got to remember, Halle Berry was that hot actress. They did choose a hot, marketable name. Now, they did a smart thing by not building the franchise around her. It was built around Wolverine, Hugh Jackman, who wasn't hardly known at the time. But there were some times where Halle lost the accent all of a sudden. Not to say she did a bad job or anything, but this young girl, back on Apocalypse, X-Men Apocalypse, she did a fantastic job with the accent, playing, she was young and a little bit mischievous. This was not the Storm yet that we're going to come to know, who's going to become mature and be a role model and stuff and everything. So I think she did a fantastic job. Now, when it comes to him rounding up his troops, then we got Angel. This was kind of a little bit of a different take on Angel, just a little bit. A lot of times we used to see Angel already part of the X-Men, or he's the part of, he's a rich kid, well-mannered and everything like that, who goes through some things. But this guy was kind of barbaric. What I liked about the scene was they first showed him, I want to say that was Blob he took down. So anybody, if I'm wrong, just correct me if I'm wrong. But when they showed him, he was kind of beastie and everything. It took me back to the first X-Men where Wolverine, took out the guy. And I was like, he kind of reminded me of Wolverine. But Apocalypse gave him some metal wings, turned him into Archangel. Kind of remember the mythology, as one of the 4 horsemen, Archangel was death at one time. So they didn't go that far into the movie of naming them and anything like that, but you could see the images there. And before we had even met him, to go back a part, we met Psylocke. That's when Mystique and Nightcrawler appeared together. And it's always been kind of rumored about him. Is Mystique his mother? In the mythology, she has been known by that to be Hidden Rogue's mother, but in this, not so much. And so, they went to the place and everything. And keep in mind, back in the beginning scene, Mystique is a hero to a lot of these mutants now. These, Xavier's children in the schools. Storm wants to be like her and everything like that. And so, but she's not really wanting that. She's like, I'm no hero. So she found out about Eric, what happened with Eric. Now, at this time, Eric, Magneto, he's living a peaceful life. You wouldn't think probably after Days of Future Past he wouldn't know this. He has a wife and a child. Loving. This guy is a loving father. You can really see the change in him. You could see what in X-Men First Class what dare I say Charles was talking about. You can see that that this is the good side of him. But unfortunately, he loses his wife and child. They die, and that's when that disturbed, very threatening, and he will do it. Magneto returns. He comes back. At this point, he is really getting tore down. He steps into the workplace, and he's telling the guys, I heard you guys talk to the cops, told them what you thought you saw that I did. And at this time, he's a preacher. The people thinking he did all the killing, as far as even his wife and kid, but not to them. But he got set up for that. And here comes Apocalypse out of nowhere. He turns back and he was like, I don't want to say the word. It was just hilarious theater cut up. Who are you? They say, he said, if you're gonna try to stop me from killing these men, don't bother. They say, Apocalypse just did it itself. So Apocalypse like, come with me. I got something to show you. So he was rounding up his horsemen. At that time, he had Psylocke, he had Storm, he had Angel, and now Magneto. And Psylocke, I really feel like Olivia Nunn actually did her role justice in this movie. Some people are wondering, like, wow, Olivia Nunn really didn't do anything. But honestly, think about it. Now, Psylocke could probably have done more, but Olivia Nunn is not on the actress level of maybe a Jennifer Lawrence or someone like that, where she could do that. Maybe in a sequel. Now, I don't want her doing the same thing she did in this, but it was very interesting. I think for her being an actress, I think that was good. Not to say she's not talented. I think Olivia Nunn is talented. But I think if she does return for a sequel, I think they should give her more play then. I was expecting more because from what I seen with her training with the stuff and whatever, probably the best scene she had, of course, was when she sliced the car. Everybody saw that in the trailer. But it was funny because Magneto was designing their outfits. And she still gets the same outfit. I understand for the comic book, it did exactly come apart, but I really think that maybe for the last battle scene she could have had something else, but that's for later on. In the movie, I really like how they introduced Cyclops. He was in school at the beginning of the movie, and then of course, his eyes was irritating, and he was blinking his eye, but the guy misinterpreted, thought he was flirting with his girl. And so, next thing you know, he goes to the restroom, and the guy just threatened him, and Cyclops really got irritated, and bam, here comes the blast. So he got picked up from school and everything, and he was going to Xavier School. And one of the greatest things about this movie they touch upon is he and Havoc's relationship. As you know, Alex Summers and Scott Summers are brothers. They do have another brother in the mythology. Don't know if he's going to make it in the X-Men anytime soon. The movie's very powerful, one of the highest levels of mutants. But anyway, that's another subject for another time. And so Havoc was guiding, his brother, and it was pretty cool to see Havoc and Beast meet each other again. We haven't seen this since First Class. You remember in First Class how Havoc teased him all the time or whatever like that. But Havoc has matured more and stuff, and Havoc had a brief appearance in Days of Future Past. Longer hair, and the actor Lucas Till who plays him actually is going to play MacGyver on the new CBS series that's coming out. So it's relieving Richard Dean Anderson of that legendary role. And so Xavier comes up, Havoc gives him a hug and everything. They haven't seen each other a long time. It was great. And Scott was definitely, you could see this was a great actor playing Scott, because he did seem like a young James Marsden, who used to play Cyclops, with the mouth and everything, but he was more mature then. But this, he was just really coming out and speaking his mind. And at one point, he bumps into Jean, but he doesn't know what Jean looks like because he's got the thing on, and so she got in his head, and he didn't kind of like that, and he blew her off. And And Alice was like, dude, I don't think you should have done that. I think you could. But Alice was like, being the brother to guide him, was like, you'll see later. And so when he wound up getting his glasses, it was pretty cool. Beast designed some glasses. Who better than Beast? And Hank was, told him about it. He was like, baby, turn them over here, because you remember early in the movie, you'll see that he fried that tree and those kids. It was funny. He split the tree in half, and the kids just scattered out like flies. But they was freaked out. But there was a scene where he got the glasses, and he was like, who is that? And Hank was like, that is the girl you blew off earlier. That's G. And so he went over there and talked to her, cool in his leather jacket. And saw the kids looking. He was like, don't worry, it's okay. I got glasses on now. She said, they're not afraid of you. It's me. He was like, what? Say, yeah, you're not the only one who can't control your powers. So, this new version of Scott and Jean had real good chemistry. And I look forward to that in some sequels to come, because we got to remember, this is the new class. These are our new X-Men for the next several years. And so they'll be coming back in some sequels. And so I really enjoyed their chemistry and seeing how they started out being young versions. We did get to meet Jubilee. I wanted Jubilee to have more of a part in this movie. She actually didn't, but she did, get to meet up with Scott. Jean, she had already been one of the kids at school established, of course, meaning Hank, but they got to make Kurt, Wagner, because him and Mystique came to the school. In this movie, Mystique, Jennifer Lawrence plays kind of a different Mystique again. She is not necessarily a baddie in this movie. She's kind of a little anti-heroish. She is, I wouldn't say a Black Widow either, but she is walking that fine line of whose side is she on. But it's not necessarily that in this movie. In the last movie, it was like, whose side is she on? We knew where her agenda was, but this, she is really trying to do the right thing. What do I think about Jennifer Lawrence's performance? A lot of people say she's trying to just cash in and go home with a paycheck or whatever. I think her performance was better than I thought it was going to be this movie. And don't get me wrong, Jennifer Lawrence is one of the best actresses in the world. She's an Academy Award winner. With or without it, she's one of the best actresses in the world. But I was one of this trend. I said, if she's going to really perform this well, I think she performed at a good level. I think it wasn't completely on the level of First Class or Days of Future Past, but I think it was a pretty good level. But I've always liked Rebecca Romano's Mystique better. That's my opinion, but this Mystique is cool also. And, it was a time in the 80s that she had the punk rock style, kind of curly, stringy hair and everything, and it was cool. So she was telling, Charles about, Xavier, and it was funny because earlier in the movie when he cleared Mattaggett's mind, and he told her, basically what happened, because Mystique had ran into her. She didn't know who Mystique was. And she was like, what happened? Charles explained he cleared her mind. And that was what happened in First Class. What I loved about this movie also, they did a great job of connecting it to First Class, just as much as they did in Days of Future Past. It's kind of reminded me of the Dark Knight trilogy when Nolan connected The Dark Knight Rises just as much to Batman Begins, just as much as The Dark Knight. So that was pretty cool and refreshing. And so it was to the point they made a plan to go seek out, Eric. And then, of course, when Eric name comes up, of course, you notice Quicksilver. That was a pretty cool scene him and his mom had and everything. And, Quicksilver in this, I think the difference between Quicksilver and Apocalypse and Days of Future Past, he is maturing some. Got his hair cut a little bit shorter. Still kind of the Frankster in a way. Joker, no pun intended in a way, with DC. But he's maturing. And, he tells mom, once I should get out of the house, and he's going to go looking. And so, next thing he goes and, comes into school at the right time. I was wondering how this scene was going to turn out this movie, because in Days of Future Past, it was a beautiful scene with the Time in a Bottle song, if I'm not mistaken what this is. But in this, when they played Hit the Cue of These Dreams, Sweet Dreams, it was perfect. This scene did not disappoint, and I loved how he saved the kids, even the dog eating the pizza and everything. But I noticed he didn't save Havoc. Not intentionally, he did not save Havoc. He wasn't aware of Havoc. But at this point, the school started blowing up and everything because Apocalypse took control of Cerebro, and so Havoc went after them when they got the professor. And then before you know it, what happens is Havoc goes run after them to stop him. but he was the one closest to the blast. So of course Scott and them shows up and everything, and Scott was very emotional, and what you call Quicksilver was like, "Now I know I saved them one," but they was like, "No, he was close to the blast." So anyway, it was an emotional scene, and it was tough. But the X-Men knew what they had to do. They had to go get Charles, so they got suited up. They had the new Blackbird, which was very cool. But they had gotten caught before then. They got caught by Stryker. Stryker shows up once again, and he had them. There was one Stryker. We don't know what Charles is, but you got to let us know we can help you. He was like, he expected me to believe that and everything, and it was freaky because Quicksilver just saw Beast. I don't think he ever seen him in the Let's Reach Man. He seen Beast in Mo. He said, "All of us gonna turn like they." He said, "No, I just forgot my meds at home." But I really enjoyed seeing Beast the rest of the way just as much as ever. He really played the role and everything. Beast really showed leadership skills and everything. And so they got the new Blackbird and everything, and they flew out to battle to save Charles. And see, at this point, Apocalypse was trying. Keep in mind, at the beginning of the movie, when you see it, you can notice it's an older version. So he transmits his conscience in another body, a younger body. He was attempting to do that with Charles. Not that he needed to as far as a younger body, but he recognized how powerful Charles Xavier's mind is. So, in this, they set up a plan for Nightcrawler to go in and everything and save Charles. So Nightcrawler was working on doing that. Nightcrawler, really grew on me in this movie. I was wondering how much I was going to be into Nightcrawler because, of course, I enjoy Alan Cummings' performance in X-Men United. But this kid who plays him did a very good job. And so there was he was teleporting, phasing in, phasing out. By the time he got the professor lost his hair because of what happened. And so, but it was just right, though. You know what I'm saying? We know how a professor is. So it was some pretty cool scenes, him battling, Apocalypse in his mind and everything. So that was pretty good. But at this point, Magneto was just building things. It was kind of like, when is Magneto going to get into action? But they said some things that really hit Magneto. And Magneto knew what he had to do. At this point still, hey, Quicksilver hasn't said, hey, that's my dad or anything. He hasn't told Eric, Magneto. But it's kind of like this whole time, Magneto's looking at this kid like, I know. You know what I'm saying? It's like he just got that feeling. So anyway, one of the emotional scenes that got me caught up, I know I'm skipping back and forth here, was they was on the jet. And Mystique started telling them, Jean was like, are you afraid that day in Washington? She said no. She said, but I was on my first battle. To encourage them, she was telling the truth. And the heartwarming that she's told them about their first team. And they were all looking. And that's the first team in first class. And so Scott, your brother was there. He was always clowning around, but when time was come down to it, he stepped up big time. Always did. So they asked where the team at now, and said her and Hank are the only ones left. That was an emotional scene because keep in mind, we as audiences, it's like in Civil War when we saw Peggy pass. We grew up with Peggy so far in these couple of movies. It's like this week, seeing when the Remnant Flash came in, and and everything, seeing that Barry go away, and now when she's talking about it, we grew up with these characters in a sense, even if it's a couple of movies. And so they were going to battle on back to Magneto. When Apocalypse was getting the edge, Magneto threw down the bar front on when he was about to go in, threw down another one. It was pretty cool seeing the X and everything, and they really started enforcing on Apocalypse. Had to, because this is a powerful villain, could take some characters down easily. But on the way to go back again, breaking out of Stryker's prison or whatever, fortress, it was pretty cool to see a certain individual show his face. And Jean was like, something's in there. It's not, it's kind of a man or whatever. But then they say, you see these feet when it's released show up in this Weapon X gear. There beholds Wolverine, Hugh Jackman. And his role was perfect in this movie. It was more than a cameo. He was probably in the movie maybe 5 to 7 minutes tops, maybe. A little less than 10 minutes, but it was perfect. He was slicing, dicing. Keep in mind, this is Wolverine back in the 80s, where he was unleashed in Weapon X very savagely. He was just slicing, dicing, cutting up. It was rough. You see blood splattered everywhere. And so Jean got in his mind and helped him calm down everything. And you can see why in the future there's always this connection. Go back to the first X-Men, this connection he always has with her. And that's one of the reasons why. And he runs off. And for all we know, keep in mind, Hugh Jackman has one more Wolverine movie. He's going to do a solo Wolverine movie. Will he be back in any Team X-Men movies? That is yet to be seen. He could have a cameo or he could have a major appearance like in Days of Future Past. We don't know. But that could have been Hugh Jackman saying goodbye to us as far as a group X-Men franchise. So that was a fitting scene. The war scene, with Magneto stepping in and everything. I like the war scene. I really did like the war scene. I think they could have done maybe a little bit more with Psylocke and everything. But it was great to see when it was funny that Magneto, Storm, they started to see that what Apocalypse isn't doing is right. This is not what we signed up for. So Magneto stepped it up big time and everything, and they really took Apocalypse down in a big major way. I could explain it all day, but you really just have to see how it really went. McTaggart. She was a character where I don't think she was a throwaway character in this movie. Her main purpose was in this movie. She did as far as what they brought in for a character to let the world know what Apocalypse is, even though she did her little scavenger hunting in there and left the door open, so that light got in there, with Apocalypse so he can come back. But in the movie, towards the end, you can see where they're coming in X-Men as whole. The costumes were cool. When Scott turned around and had the blue and yellow on, it was great. Storm had her colors, classic color, the black and white or black and silver. Yeah, Quicksilver with his suit on and everything. All of them had suits. But keep in mind, with a special young lady, Jean Grey tapped into the Phoenix Force. That really did it in where Apocalypse couldn't behold that power. And see, from my understanding, and that's where they're going to be covering some sequels. And it was funny at one part of the movie when they came out, speaking of sequels, they came out saying Return of the Jedi when Jean was like, third movies are never go well or something like that. And that was them taking a shot at X-Men The Last Stand. I'm like, wow. So that was pretty cool. That was pretty funny. But overall, I know I did a lot of skipping back and forth in the movie. Hey, it's a review. But I do encourage you to go see the movie. X-Men Days of Future Past, X-Men Apocalypse. It's one of the movies kind of now crept into theaters. But it's actually a pretty good movie. I enjoyed it. I would have liked to see more mutants of this, but I think it's more to come with this X-Men universe. And now the Deadpool is also joining and everything. So I really like the movie. I'm going to rank it for me at a 8. I've heard some people give it a 7.5. I give it an 8. I did enjoy the storytelling. I enjoyed the character development of Apocalypse. I really enjoyed the character development of Scott and Jean Grey. Scott Summers, Jean Grey and everything. The performance of Hugh Jackman did not disappoint. Small appearance, they did a great job and everything. All these characters were done very well. I wish they would have done a little bit more with Psylocke, but understandably so. You got to look at the actress who's playing her. I think if Psylocke does return, they'll do more with her, but that's a question. Sometimes these are just one characters that go off and they're never seen again. You know what I'm saying? So we'll see. My advice to anyone, stay after the end credit scenes. Because like I said, with Marvel Studios, they probably do it just as great as anyone. But they are not the first one, only ones to do end credit scenes, mid-end credit scenes. At the very end, you notice these guys walk in with a briefcase, shiny briefcase. They're all about business. They go into the site where Stryker's place is. They got the badge, finished getting them other bodies. You notice he put out a Weapon X. You'll say, okay, it's Weapon X. When a case he puts it in, you'll notice a name in there. And that name is Essex. As in Dr. Nathaniel Essex, Mr. Sinister. That really got me wild up because I've been wanting a long time for them to start going into his storylines. So that's something they could start going into the next X-Men movie. Keep in mind, they can do so many different things with the Phoenix Force. He's always been obsessed with the Summers bloodline. So that's very interesting. Did Havoc die? We don't really know. Didn't see the body or whatever like that. Very interesting. What if Sinister wind up getting his body. You never know. So I really enjoyed the movie. That's my review of it. That's my 2 cents of it. You can put your thoughts at the bottom, what you thought about the movie. Click the subscribe button regarding this video. And I really enjoyed the movie. I look very forward to it. I may go back and see it again. The summer movie season now is here. Next up after X-Men Apocalypse, if I am not mistaken, is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Out of the Shadows. So we're still rolling with comic book movies, superhero season. I say, hey, go to the movies, enjoy it, whether you're with your family, friends, whoever. Just go to it, even if you're by yourself, and just enjoy yourself. And thanks again for tuning in for another episode of Access Channel Comics, where there are many, there are few, but there are none like you. Of course not. And I look forward to seeing you again. Remember, every episode is loaded up on every Tuesday and Saturday. And we'll see you again a little bit later on. Enjoy the movies. And also remember, just as much, enjoy your life. Peace.